The question is, as we are left to endure in this world, and when our parents are not God-fearing, even professing to not believe, how do we find a godly balance among the commandments to obey parents and honor father and mother, yet also to leave them and receive not? And there's some verses, as examples, Exodus 20:12,
honor your parents.
right, and Colossians 3:20. Colossians 3:20 says, "Children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well pleasing unto the Lord." Mark 10:29, and Jesus answered and said, "Verily I say unto you, there is no man that hath left house, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my sake and the gospel's." And then 2 John 1:10, "If there come any unto you and bring not this doctrine, receive him not into your house, neither bid him Godspeed."
Well, God tells children to obey their parents, to honor their parents. It says in Ephesians 6:2, verse 1, "Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother," which is the first commandment, "with promise that it may be well with thee and thou mayest live long on the earth." And that has spiritual meaning, but it also applies to children, that they should obey their parents. Okay, so if you're a parent, and the age of your children matters. If it's little children, you say make the bed. Should the young girl or young boy obey their mother and their father and make the bed? Yes, they should. And God says, He's speaking to them, obey your parents. And a lot of things are like that. Do this, and if a parent tells you cut the grass, well, you should cut the grass. You should cut the grass. Now, if your parent says cut the grass and it's Sunday, and you're an elect child, and this would go for young child too, but it's Sunday, and so you can go to your mother and father. Now, at that point, there's an authority over you that God has placed, who is your parents. And God also tells you, listen to your parents. But God is above them. Just like the government. God gives a government that's an authority over us. The government tells us how fast we can go on the road. Walk with the light. Whatever. All the many laws that are out there that the government lays down. And we should obey them. But once an authority over us, and that authority they have is given by God, whether it be the government or a parent, once that authority goes contrary to what God has stipulated elsewhere in the Bible, then we're obligated to obey God. To obey God. So if father says cut the grass, and the 12-year-old doesn't want to do it on Sunday because it's the Lord's Day, and he's really not trying to get out of it and postpone it and put it off to I'll do it tomorrow. He's not trying to do that. He really just wants to obey God, and so he says, all right, Dad, I'll cut the grass, and I'll do the best job I've ever done tomorrow, because it's Monday, and explain, it's Sunday. I want to spend time with the Bible. And it's that way with all the laws of man, the authorities that God has put in this world. We obey them as much as their laws are lawful. It says in 1 Timothy chapter 1, in verse 8, "But we know that the law is good if a man use it lawfully." So the Word of God, the Bible itself, is good if you use it lawfully. And And so as long as the laws of a household or the laws of a country are in accord with the law of God, the Bible, then we obey. We're very subservient. People might even think, look at this guy, or look at this kid, and speak badly because the child obeys his mother, his father, on all these things. But once the government says, okay, you've had your limit of children, you've had your one child. Does any government say that? In China, because they have a population of over 1 billion, I think it's approaching 1.5 billion people. So they let you have one child. But what does God say? What does God say? He says, he speaks well of being fruitful and multiplying, and we don't put any limit on it. We don't put any limit. Now, it might be you only end up with one child or no children. But if God gives a second and a third, we know this, that's for sure, that we cannot, in good conscience, we cannot try to prevent pregnancy, we cannot end pregnancy. That's in God's hands. Well, then the government, there's an issue because their law is contrary to the law of God, and they think they're number one. They think they're the big deal, and you have to listen to our law above every law, and don't tell me about the Bible. And yet the child of God will say, no, I'm sorry, I must obey God first. His law is the supreme law. We talk about a Supreme Court that issues supreme laws. Whatever, let's go to the higher court. And you have state judges that go to district judges, and then, there's all these appeals. Finally, it goes to the Supreme Court. And whatever the Supreme Court decides, like Roe versus Wade, well, that's it. That's law. That's law. And yet, that is not the highest court or the highest law. There's a law higher, a supreme law, which is the law book of God, the Bible. And in this law book, God says, thou shalt not kill. And that means you're not to abort for any reason. There is no justification for killing. Thou shalt not kill. And so when a nation says, well, now you must terminate your pregnancy, you must abort this baby. No, I'm sorry. Now, it might mean you go to jail, or it might mean who knows what. You're oppressed, whatever. But the people of God will do the will of God when it comes to those situations. And of course, God will give us the strength and the ability to do it. It's the same thing with parents. We honor our parents insofar as they are telling us or doing things that are in line with the Bible. If our parents say, well, our house goes to church, we want to go to church. I'm sorry, mother, father, or come on, it's Mother's Day, and you're even a grown adult child. You're all grown up, but do this for me. Do this for me. Come to church because it's Mother's Day. It's Father's Day. Of course, they're wrong to begin with. It's the Lord's Day. It's not Mother's Day or Father's Day. It's the Lord's Day. But come to church and honor me. You're disrespecting me if you don't come on that day. Sorry. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry, Dad. I cannot do that because the church age is over and God's commanded me to come out of church. And so it's in situations like that, really, that are severe trials and tests that help us to sort of know where we're at spiritually, what our heart condition is. If we're continuing to fail those kinds of tests, then there's a problem, because we're loving mother and father and brother and sister more than Christ. and that shouldn't be.